Hi, my name is Rachel Honda from Straight Jacket Podcast.
My name is Jeff from Mental Health Resource, and today we have Lola from
Aliya Health.
Aliya
Hi,
Health.
guys. Thanks for
Hi.
having me. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Of course. And then if you can say a little bit about your position at Aliya Health.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I am a BD rep, which means Business Development Officer. Very fancy title for no reason. But yeah, I used to be a case manager, and now I'm in business development as of 7 months ago.
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. And then what do you think are the benefits of doing business development over clinical?
Yeah, I think it's super important to come from a clinical background. It helps a lot. So basically what I do is I go out to other facilities, I seek them out, I meet the clinical teams like I did with you guys here. And I basically see if we can send clients to you guys, meaning if we have someone, we're primary substance use. If we have someone that needs primary mental health, like we're not going to keep them, we're going to refer out, and we want to do it to a good company, to a good program with good people, right? So basically I go meet those people, I go seek out the programs and build relationships, and that's basically what I do. I think that I enjoyed this role a lot more than most roles I've had in the industry, just because I get to be out there more. As a case manager, I blindly would send clients to facilities, not knowing the clinical teams or even hearing about the facilities. So I think I just feel better as a person morally, being able to meet these people and get out there and be able to spread our name as a company. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and then what do you think is your favorite part about connecting with the individuals that you go out and meet?
Yeah, I honestly, it just makes me feel good about what we do. I think it was kind of the missing piece to my knowledge of the industry, if that makes sense. I didn't really know what was beyond the walls of the company I would work at.
Right.
So now I get to go into these other companies, know what's out there, good or bad, right? And be able to direct people to the right level of care, right? That might not be with the company I work for, even though it's amazing. It might not be the right fit for everyone, right? So I think it's just being able to be a resource for people, talk to clients for an hour and then be able to be like, okay, I have a great place that I think would fit you perfectly. So, I think that's probably the best part.
Love that.
Yeah.
In the helping profession. You're in the helping profession.
Yeah. I honestly, I didn't really know that's what I was getting into, but I've told people a million times my whole story. I've had great jobs throughout my life, but didn't feel like I had a purpose of any kind whatsoever, no motivation. And I think these types of jobs in this industry kind of gave me that purpose, right? Feeling like I can actually make a difference and help someone, right? So, yeah.
How did you start in the treatment industry?
I actually got a get well job.
Okay.
So I was 3 months clean, lied and said I was 6 months clean, and got a, behavioral tech job.
Okay.
So I was working at a facility, 3 months clean. I was in sober living, and I worked as a tech for about 6 months, and then I got offered case management, and then it was up from there. Yeah.
That's what I love about treatment is you can really move up pretty quickly and know all different parts of it too.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, I think it's like we were talking about earlier. It's awesome to be able to come from within and kind of see all different perspectives of the industry. It's really a cool experience to kind of work your way up.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So what brought you into the treatment industry?
I'm in recovery myself, so I'm an alcoholic. So I have a story, and it was kind of not planned, right? So after getting clean myself and going into treatment and going through ups and downs of that for a very long time, I just wanted a job. Honestly, a job where I could get there with my schedule for sober living, right? That was convenient, and it wasn't not planned to stay in this field. So, it was it was just happenstance, and I think it was kind of like meant to be in a way, right? Everything happens for a reason. But yeah, if I wasn't in recovery, there's no way I would be in this field at all.
Tell us a little bit about what got you to the point of recovery.
Yeah, I mean, to take you back. So born and raised in LA. Was very lucky to have the opportunities of the schooling I got. My father's from Compton. My mom's from Boston, Massachusetts. So kind of the best of both worlds. They put all of their money towards me and my sister's schooling. So we went to really, really good schools here in Los Angeles. But at the same time, even though I got an amazing education, I was kind of, let's say, imposter syndrome very early in life, where I'm around all these very wealthy children having stacks of cash, like in first grade, to do whatever they want. And I'm like picking off of other people's lunches, from a very young age. And I think that's kind of probably where it all started. Definitely where the mental health started, right? Not knowing who I am, right? There's also the aspect of like being mixed and not being white enough or not being black enough to fit into either community. So I think that definitely was the foundation that was slowly being built over time, that then eventually led to like late high school, maybe like junior or senior year. I was like the stoner of my private high school in the Valley, for lots of levels of age ranges. I was the person that people came to for weed. And I loved that. I loved like being that girl, and I just fell in love with weed. I think it was probably because it was an escape and it allowed me to be someone who I really wasn't, put on kind of a character, So at first, I guess it was innocent. Then later, towards the end of senior year, tried Xanax, tried Coke, just kind of anything, because at that point I was depressed. I was super anxious. That's why I smoked weed. And it didn't cause paranoia for me at that point either yet. So I think there was a lot of things that from the outside, being in the family I was in, it was very important. Presentation was very important, right? So behind closed doors, whatever happened, as soon as there was a guest in the house or we were out in public, it was the opposite, right? No one would ever know that there were issues in the family, that me and my sister had issues of any kind. She was dyslexic, right? She went to a private school with like 15 kids in it, like until senior year. And of course I had my own issues, but I masked it so that I would have the freedom I wanted to like be able to go get high and do whatever. So it started kind of innocently. And then I believe when I went to college, the opportunity to go to school, I played sports my entire life. From when I was 3, I played like volleyball, basketball, soccer, and I painted from a very young age too. So I had like these 2 avenues I could take when it came to college, and I had the grades to back it too. And I was like, if I can go to New York and paint for 4 years and smoke weed, please sign me up. Let's do it.
Nice.
Let's play. Let's go. So that's exactly what I did. I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, and decided and realized that I could be whoever I wanted to be because no one knew me. New city, new people. So I did exactly that. And I think that's really where my mental health completely fell apart. Among other things that happened, because I, first of all, wasn't just being myself, but I was running away from whoever I was or thought I was, right, to become someone else because I didn't like who I was, right? So there I started partying. The weed was just to go to sleep. At that point, it was picking up a gram of Coke every day, and hanging out with people that were doing the same things and enabling it, right? And had mental health issues of their own, but were blinding it with drugs and alcohol. And it kind of just seemed like the norm too, because in New York it's fast paced and that's what everyone kind of does, to an extent, right? There's the stoners and then there's the people that go clubbing every single night and do things like Coke. And So there I picked up a nasty habit. After 4 years, I was definitely a cokehead, as you will. And I lost myself completely. I was bulimic. My second year, I was throwing up everything I ate. I'm like 6 foot, and I was like 160 pounds, skin and bone. Went home one summer, and I think what kind of locked it in for me, and led to like why I hated my parents later more so, was because I went home and my mom was like, "You look great. This is the best you've ever looked," right? And I'm throwing up everything I eat. I have a huge Coke addiction. I'm super depressed, super anorexic. I was sick looking. Seriously, I look like a skeleton, and I'm pale, and you have see-through skin. Hair is falling out, all this stuff, and I think just it not only enabled it, obviously, but it made me be like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be
okay.
doing. This is great. I'm the best I've ever been. So going back after that summer break, it picked up from there. I became more promiscuous. I got pregnant, and I was alone in a city where I didn't know anyone, and got an abortion. And I don't know if you know anyone who's been through it, but they say you can have surgery or you can take this pill. And I'm like, oh, let me just take a pill. Obviously, it's so easy. Took the pill. It's a very painful experience. Again, I think it was my sophomore year, so I was alone in my dorm room. Agonizing pain, and I think I really, at that moment, I always say I have a switch in my brain that I can turn on and turn off, and completely dissociate. And I think at that point, sophomore year, I just was numb for the following 2.5 years. I didn't care what I did to myself. I didn't care who I surrounded myself by. I happened to do well in school because it was in regards to painting, and film classes. I minored in film. And before I knew it, college was over. I had a raging Coke addiction. I was physically horrifying, and my mental health was the worst it's ever been. So I have no money, of course. I didn't work those 4 years. I go home to LA. I have to live with my parents now in a house where I don't have a door, and I share a wall with them at 22 years old. And I have this awful addiction. So from there, I would say things just spiraled because I couldn't hide it anymore. They realized that I was really struggling. Addiction also runs in my family, mental health as well. I've had family members pass away from it. So my mother caught on very quickly, but at the same time, they don't know what to do, right? And it's not their fault, right? At that point, I hated my parents, and they weren't allowing me to live the life I wanted to live, and the life I kind of thought that they had shaped in a way, right? Because I thought they had shaped me and the choices I had made as a person. And it just went downhill. ADD money hit at that time, so I had like a good $15,000 for the first time in my life. I got an apartment on my own in North Hollywood, and picked up about $1,000 of Coke, and went up to San Jose, visited people I should not have been around, and did that whole crazy thing. So something I thought that had gotten so bad in college, where I was still surrounded by people, I still had friends, and this and that. I was now in my own apartment. It had like stark hospital white walls. There was nothing in there. There was a mattress on the ground, and the entire year I lived there, I didn't hang anything. I had my clothes in a suitcase still. I got an awesome art job working as a art director at a product company in Calabasas, through family friends. So I had a great job. I was a painter's assistant downtown for these awesome artists. So on the outside, again, it looked fine, right? But I could do all my work from my bed. So I was sitting on my bed, doing all my work on my computer, doing lines, mental health, just a mess, right? And at that point, I was inviting whoever I met on the street into my apartment to sleep with me with their pit bulls, and they're random people. I'd wake up and not know who they were. And I thought that, I mean, that was the best I could do at that point, right? Because I didn't want to be alone. I had codependency for sure. And whoever I could latch onto, I lost all my true friends, right? Because I had borrowed money from them, or I had stolen money from them blatantly, or all the bad things you can think of I've done to those friends. So I'd burned all those bridges. And one night I stayed up all night the night before Halloween of 2020 and doing an all-nighter with this random guy that was in my apartment and looking to pick up again. It was 10 in the morning. No one was answering, of course. And finally someone answered. I believe it was in Thousand Oaks. So I drove my car out to Thousand Oaks at 10 a.m. Halloween morning. Finally picked up. Did a big line before I got into my car. And remember it being not Coke. Like I was like, this is... Oh, no. It was different material, different whatever. But I didn't care. I was desperate. Within 5 seconds, I called a friend and said, I don't know what I just took, but it's the best feeling I've ever felt. And I don't remember hanging up, and I woke up in Burbank Hospital. I had OD'd in the fast lane on the 101 freeway and rolled into the median. And yeah, it was fentanyl. So from that moment on, could not hide it. I think my lowest point and my wake-up call was I tried to call people from the hospital to pick me up. And the only person that came or was willing to answer was a 60-year-old biker dude I had met like in the valley randomly and did meth with him. He came and picked me up on like his motorcycle. And that was terrifying and very sad. And I just fell apart, and my parents found out, of course. And I begged them to check me into treatment. So that was in November of 2020. I did the whole ups and downs thing of treatment for about a year. I met a boy in treatment and made him my everything.
Yeah.
And he happened to be a body broker too, so that was super fun. And it was just, you know, talk about mental health issues. I mean, I turned my family away. This person made me think that they were the devil. I stopped talking to them for 8 months, and fast forward 8 months of going into treatment in a nice place in Malibu. My parents put me in there, and I'm homeless on the streets in Hollywood doing meth, which I told myself I'd never do. Hopping from motel to motel, sleeping in my car, right on the La Cienega Strip. And I mean, at one point I was just desperate. And I think that if I wasn't desperate, I would never have gotten clean, and I would have never gotten the help I needed for my mental health. And I went into treatment of June of 2021, and that's when I clicked. And from that moment on, I just listened to everything that the people were telling me to do. I hated everybody I was in treatment with. I hated all the people. They wanted me to wake up at 6, make my bed. I got into like a physical altercation with this guy who was a racist. It was a mess. But I did it because I had nowhere else to go, and I was desperate because I didn't know anything, and I knew they knew something, or else they wouldn't be having a treatment center or be a therapist. And before I knew it, I was doing those things that I hated so much, and I wasn't hating it as much anymore. And I started to actually like myself and like the people I surrounded myself by, and got that job in treatment. A couple months later, past a bad living situation, right out of sober living, I now live with 4 people I met in recovery, who are still my best friends to this day. The only friends I would say I really had that wasn't transactional. And yeah, I mean, throughout that time, I was a behavioral tech, met a lot of great people, became case manager, then lead case manager, then went to another facility, Aliya, to be a case manager about 1.5 years ago. And then I came on as a BD rep about 7 months ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the short version.
No, I love that. I have so many questions.
Yeah, right?
Like, where do I start? Well, I guess let's start here. What do you think kept you sober. So, like, from the advice that you've gotten,
Yeah.
from your experience, what kept you sober? And also, like, your mental health
Yeah.
going well.
Yeah. I think continuing to do all the things that I didn't want to do, and that honestly till this day I still don't want to do, like wake up in time for work, and the small things like that, creating an order in my life of some kind. That was the number one thing my therapist would always say, is to have a routine of some kind that you could stick to, right?
Yes.
That could be like a foundation and is, stability for you. I think that was the number one thing, as well as community, right? I was forced to go to AA meetings and hated them and hated how happy those people were at first. And then I became one of them. And without the friends that I live with now, if I did not have them or the situation that I live in now or my family now, there's no way I would have been able to do it on my own. Yeah. So I would definitely say doing all the things you don't want to do, and community, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
They say, like, the opposite of addiction is connection.
It's connection.
So
My
it's
favorite
true.
TED Talk.
It really is amazing. I think
Yeah.
I've seen it in, I've also had it in every class. And
I've shown it a
But-
million
yep.
times, literally. Yeah.
but it really captures it well.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about, like, what stuff did you struggle with? So, like, that you said codependency, you really struggled with. So how did you work through that?
Yeah. I would say my main issues were codependency. I had a huge anger issue. Anger, anxiety, and depression. Those were my main issues in regards to mental health. Codependency, I think the main thing for me was learning to actually love myself. And I know that sounds cheesy, and it does.
But it's true.
Everyone I talk to, all the clients, I'm like, I know it sounds crazy. But not only just loving yourself, but figuring out ways that you can learn to love yourself, right? Which is different for everybody. And I think that takes time too, right? Time and practice. It does not happen overnight. I think finding things that you love doing and surrounding yourself by people that you do love, if you just do those simple things and you stick to them, even when you want to be alone and when you want to isolate, I think that is definitely a key factor in my sobriety today, for sure. In regards to my anger, had to realize that I'm definitely not always right, and I'm far from it. So I think a huge thing is also acceptance, or was acceptance for me, and every day it still is. I hated my family for whatever reason I made up in my mind. But the real truth of it was I just couldn't accept them for who they were as individuals. And I couldn't accept that they are who they are, and that has nothing to do with me, and I can't change that, right? Like, my parents have lived and thought away for 60 years, right? Just because their daughter that they love very much is going through something doesn't mean that they can suddenly just shift that, right? And completely understand it and get behind it. It took them time. We're definitely in a much better place than we were. They're awesome. I can now see them as like human beings rather than just my parents, if that makes sense, you know? No one's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. But accepting them for where they are and who they are, and realizing that that doesn't have to have an effect on me, and I don't have to always, have their, what is it? I don't have to base my life on making them proud for everything I do, right? I think that was a huge thing, is that every single step I took, I related it back to my parents and what they would think, right? Which held me back a lot. And now me and my sister are very different people. But for instance, I have a lot of tattoos. My father hates tattoos. He hates them. And I just don't like hiding. Like, I'm not going to hide that from them. I'm 30 years old, right? I can make my own choices. And it was the same thing back in the day when I smoked weed. I'm like, I'm not going to hide it from them. If they want to disown me, they can, But just being myself and learning that when I am myself, they still love me, you know,
Yeah.
which is scary. It's scary to just put yourself out there like that. But it's also very freeing when you realize all these thoughts and ideas and concepts that you had about how people will judge you or what they're gonna, you know, what they're gonna think. It's just not accurate. People can surprise you, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, and then with the anxiety and depression, is the structure what helped you as well, or was there more to
I needed
it?
structure.
Okay.
Yeah. All the places I went to that I wasn't successful at getting clean at did not have the structure I needed. The last place I went to was very intense, very hardcore, 24/7, and it's different for everybody, right? But I needed that structure, and 3 years later, 4 years later, today, I still need that structure. I still need to wake up every morning and have a scheduled, planned meeting that I have to hit every day. I have to hit those things. I got to go to the gym. I have to do these things. Or else, you know, even though I have a remote job and I make my own schedule, I can't just lay on my couch all day.
No, and that's
I'll
all the
feel
more
like
reason
shit.
you need a structure.
Yeah, exactly. That's the moment when those thoughts of like, you suck and you're so lazy and why do you know, what are you doing? Your bosses are going to think this or that, you know, start to come to be. So structure is very important for me. Also taking into consideration the physical, the spiritual aspects of it as well. So I need to stay active in some way or another. And I can't isolate, you know, can't isolate. I need to have someone to talk to. That's another huge thing, right? Even if it's between therapists, I need to have a friend I can vent to about something, right? I can't keep it all in, or else it's like that trash can. It just builds up and then it catches fire. What really helped me at first with my anxiety and depression and racing thoughts and all those things was writing things down, right? I think the first time I realized that was doing the step work, like step 4. Writing out everything you've ever done and all these people, whatever it was, it felt great to me. You know, that's the scariest step for a lot of people, but for me, it was nice to see everything on paper and to realize it actually wasn't the end of the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're not the worst person to ever live, you know? And after that, I continued doing like a gratitude list every single night before I go to sleep. And it's like small things that people think, oh, like, yeah, whatever. It's not going to make a difference. Or, oh, yeah, whatever. I can tell someone I'm grateful for something. Yeah, exactly. And it made a huge difference. I think it also added to the routine, right? So I think just having outlets of different kinds definitely helped, whether it's art or sports or whatever, an outlet and a sense of community. And yeah, for me, a huge thing was not isolating. Yeah.
Could I ask you how you structure your gratitude lists?
Yeah. So I like the way I do it. It's not just like, okay, list like 10 things you're grateful for. It gets boring. You know what I mean?
After a while.
So I think it's like 4 or 5 things you're grateful for, right? Start off basic. Then 2 things you did well today. 4 emotions you felt today. And 2 things you want to achieve tomorrow.
I like that.
Yeah. So it doesn't make you stuck on one thing or another. You think about like your day, you know, your emotions, not just like physical things, right? And I think it's like pretty well rounded. That's what my sponsor told me to do. And I was like, let's go. Let's go. Sponsees I've had them do it, and then we all message ours in a group chat, right? So you can see what other people are thinking, what they went through. But yeah, I found that to be super helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing them. I did them for like 30 days straight. That's what somebody told me to like do it for 30 days and
Try it out. Yeah.
change the neurons in your brain or something.
Right.
I was like, okay. But I did it for 30 days and it definitely changed something. It's usually like kind of like my snap like reaction.
Right.
Is like, or it's like, I guess a coping mechanism is just think about the part that I'm grateful for.
Right.
I think it was like 5 things you're grateful for today, 5 things you're grateful to be you for, and then 5 positives in the past 24 hours.
Love
I was like
that.
5, 5, 5.
Love.
that.
Yeah. that
Angel
was a good one.
numbers.
Yeah.
I literally just actually covered it up, but I had 555 tatted on my leg.
Oh,
I took one of my roommates had her boyfriend had a tattoo gun, and I did it on myself, and it was awful, and I just got it covered up, but it was there. It was there. But no, that's perfect. It's well-rounded, right? And yeah, even if you're like someone that totally doesn't believe in that stuff, if you do it for 30 days, it reprograms your brain in a way, right?
And it's not just like there's studies
Yeah.
that show this stuff
Exactly.
works and decreases anxiety and depression. And
It's like, why
it's
not
all
try
about
it?
shifting perspective, I think.
Yep.
And I think like in your story you can see like your perspective changed
Right.
on your family, on sobriety, on all of it, and then that's when it worked for you. So
Yeah, I
huge.
think it's also like what you said, like even if you're going through, you get into a fender bender or something, right? I would.
Like,
I
at
have
least I
horrible
didn't
road
die.
rage. Yeah, exactly. I have horrible road rage. I will tell you that. But at least I didn't die, right? At least it wasn't worse. You know, I flipped my car before. At least I didn't flip my car, dude. At least everyone's okay. You know, and your brain starts to do that by itself, which is cool. You know, I think a huge thing that I was told when I went into treatment is like we have to reprogram your brain. Like your brain has been thinking this way and doing things like this for a very long time. And all these coping skills and these tasks we're having you do are not just out of annoyance, right? It's
Right.
to help reprogram and rewire your brain and to having these better pathways instead of choosing, oh, I'm going to go isolate. You go talk to somebody about it, right? So, yeah, I think without doing all those things I did not want to do, I wouldn't have been able to reprogram my brain, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was I know you went to school for art and painting. How has that been with your recovery?
Yeah, actually. So going to school for something that is kind of like, you can't tell someone they're bad at that's not how you do abstract painting. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you can't do that,
that's
but
true.
they somehow did, right? So I've been told by various people, like when you go to school for something like painting or drawing, it kind of ruins it for you. Because of that, you have to do it a certain way to like pass the class or to make your professor happy. But when I went into treatment, the first treatment center I went into, I had an art therapist, and he was so cool. He was like, he walked in this velvet suit and had like these crystals hanging on his neck, and he had a huge suitcase that he would just open, and there was a canvas that we put on the table and it was perfect. And I realized in that 1 hour period that all these people from all walks of life who have stories, all different kinds, for that 1 hour, every single person was only focusing on the painting in front of them and nothing else. So no one was thinking about their anxiety or their depression or their trauma or this and that. They were only focusing on like what line to paint next. And that moment on, I strived to become an art therapist. So about 7 months ago when I got this new job, I actually got into school for art therapy. Which is a very new niche when it comes to schooling. And I would have had to go to school in Massachusetts and like drop everything. So it just wasn't the right time. You know, I wasn't like, oh, damn it. You know, I was like, it's just a sign. It's not the right time. But yeah, I think art, again, it can be a different medium for other people, right? It can be film. It can be whatever. Just taking a passion and having it as an outlet it's awesome. It's awesome. It's helped a lot. And I think something as fluid as art also can help like a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, someone like my sister who is fearful of things like therapy because it dredges up your past, had a therapist that was an art therapist, and she had a huge breakthrough, you know. by just like drawing things, because, you know, like even children, they'll draw things, but they won't talk about them, you know, or people will bury things so deep down
Yeah.
that they don't even remember them. But in a painting, it might come up, you know, or dark colors versus bright colors, whatever it is. So it's definitely my past life and my present life definitely have meshed at one point. I honestly would like to be able to have the time to paint more. But I think in other ways it definitely is still there in my day to day, for sure, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you could even like at the place you work at run
Yeah.
like art therapy group.
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know?
Just add to the curriculum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite, one of my favorite activities to do for art therapy, and I've done it with like poems or any
Exactly.
sort of creative
Yep.
expression.
Music,
Yes,
Writing.
is
Yeah,
like
writing, exactly.
to have them depict their addiction versus their recovery, and oh my gosh, I get
It's
the most
crazy.
creative
Yeah.
things ever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think you're right. It helps people who don't really communicate well to like really open up.
Yeah, we at one of our aftercare facilities, we have a music studio, like a legit studio with mics and drums and guitar, and we have a music therapist come in once a week. And, you know, as a case manager, I would sit down and do face-to-face sessions with clients and, you know, people who are incarcerated their whole life, right? Young kids, and they come in, they don't say anything when you're sitting with them one-on-one. They don't open up. And then an hour later, I hear them like rapping a whole song, you know? So it's going to be different for everybody, but everybody has an outlet of some kind where they relate to it, right? So yeah, like writing, absolutely. I used to love writing. It's poems, screenplays, whatever. It's a great outlet, right? That goes back to journaling and all that. So
I also think it increases, like it improves self-esteem because you're more aware
absolutely
of yourself, of like everything around you. So
It's
It like
making-
slows your brain down for a second.
Yep. It's a pause for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it makes whatever we have going on up here become a physical of some kind, whether it's a song or a poem or whatever, a painting. And I think that's kind of a relief for a lot of people, right? Is to be able to like get something that was inside and stuck and you can't really look at it, right? Down into a physical thing, right? But yeah, it's awesome. I love art therapy can mean a bunch of different things, right? And I think honestly that it should be incorporated a lot more.
yes.
So yeah, I think again it's a new niche right now. But I think in the next few years it definitely is going to show up more. Yeah.
Something that AI can't take our jobs from.
Exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah.
What would you say would be your biggest advice to people who are either struggling with mental health or addiction, and just, or even those who just want a change, who feel like they're in a rut?
Yeah, I think the number one thing I would say to do is also the hardest thing to do, which is to ask for help. And at the same time, admit that you don't know everything, right?
Yes.
Because it's whether it's addiction or mental health, if someone's struggling and they're doing things the way they've been doing things and it's not working, right? You need to try it someone else's way or another way. But we can't necessarily just do that, wake up one morning and start doing things differently. Like we need assistance, right? But at the same time, admitting that we need help is the hardest thing to do. So I think just talking to your mom or your friend or a therapist, a stranger, whoever, just get it out into the world, because I think you'd be surprised at how much that one thing, that one conversation could really help you in the long run.
Yeah. Very true.
What do you think is the right type of structure for people, I guess, early in their, like recovery or like mental health? Yeah.
Best structure, like meaning facility or just in
Just
general.
like type. Yeah, just like in general, just for people like,
I think it's different for each individual for sure. But I think if you can find a way to get into a setting in which you can talk about your situation and also listen to others' situations, because it's one thing to be able to talk one-on-one with a therapist, but to be in like a group setting, whether it's a meeting or groups in treatment, whatever, right? Or a Bible group, literally anything. You also hear other people's experiences and you realize you're not alone. And I think that another main struggle of ours, whether it's addicts or people struggling with mental health, is that we feel alone. And we feel like it's us versus the world and we're the only ones going through this and no one can understand. So I would just say to put yourself in a situation, whatever that may be, in which you can share what's going on with you and also listen to others.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just probably like for some shorts and stuff, do you want to go over some just crazy stories that, you know, people would find interesting?
I'm trying to think. Sorry, my phone was ringing. Let me try and think of crazy stories. I was trying to think of some like right before we started.
I feel like so much stuff happens.
I
that
know.
When it's time to remember, I'm like,
Yeah, I also feel like I'm realizing lately that I think I like suppressed a shit ton of stuff. Not because they were bad or good or whatever, but I also think I like had an upbringing where I was very lucky and I was surrounded by the wealth of LA, that it was really normal to me. Like it was really normal to me, which is crazy. But that's why I probably don't think of it as like crazy stories. I don't know, man. I can't think of one insane
one
story that
specific.
has to do with my addiction, but a crazy little tiny thing that when I was growing up, I left school, ditched for lunch in Beverly Hills with a group of my girlfriends, and we took her Range Rover. And she pulled over to the gas station and needed gas and then asked me to hop out of the car with her because she wanted to talk to me. And she said, "I don't know how to pump my gas. Can you pump it for me?"
what?
And I was like, what? We're 18. What are you talking about? And then she was like, "Yeah, just don't tell them." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I think in that moment, that was like a moment in which I started feeling gratitude, right? Like, yeah, I didn't have drivers that woke up at 5 a.m. to fill my car before I left the house, like some of these girls, but I knew how to pump my own gas. Like, that's crazy. I know how to survive in the real world. And I know it's probably not the crazy story you were hoping for, but
No, I think it's significant of something.
yeah, for sure. I think that's like, and honestly, I think that was during a time in my life where I felt no gratitude whatsoever. I was very mad at my parents for not being as wealthy as these other girls' families, or you know, they flew us on private jets to like an island for her birthday. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Why couldn't I have $20 for lunch? You know? So I think that was a time in my life where that was like a huge moment of realization for me. I think the other crazy moments or crazy stories would just be like
War stories.
Yeah, exactly. War stories that I think people kind of zone out when listening to, because it's, you know, happens to a lot of us and has happened to a lot of us. And I also don't think mine are like glamorous in any way. Like, mine are like, I'm homeless on the streets in Hollywood, you know, and hopping from motel to motel and things of that nature. But yeah, I think a lot of maybe those stories were like at crazy parties for whoever famous person in the hills of Hollywood, and this happened, I met this person or whatever, and I walked in. Okay. This is another just crazy thing. I was at one of my closest friends' parties she threw a lot of in Bel Air at her house, and all the girls would come over to get ready beforehand, and we're getting ready in her room, and everybody's like down at the party. You know, I'm staying behind to do a little blow. And I go into her closet, like, to put something away in my bag, and I hit something with my shoulder, and this, like, jewelry case opened, like, automatically, like, in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, into, like, a safe with, like, diamonds and everything. And then a safe was just open next to me with stacks of cash.
What?
And this girl who is like 17th bedroom. I'm like, why would she need that?
Oh my god.
What the hell is this? I might have taken a couple on. But I think things like that were just like, what the fuck, dude? These lives that people live that are somehow parallel to my life because I go to school with them, and I don't know, but my life was nothing like that, you know? I went to school with like Mary Kate and Ashley. They went to my school. The Fannings went to my school. One of my closest friends, you know, their father was an actor growing up, you know? So I think I grew up in craziness, like craziness. And I also I had that imposter syndrome very young. And dress a certain way and act a certain way. Don't show your emotions, you know? So I don't know. I think my story is just one huge fucking crazy story to me, you know?
I like it because you've been in both worlds.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like motels,
Absolutely.
using to, you know, the with celebrities.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
it's also one of my favorite things is like sitting on with the one-on-one with a client and, you know, seeing they're like super closed off and they don't even want to make eye contact with you. And you can tell that they're like in a hole, right? And then I'm like, okay, everything I'm saying isn't helping. But then I share, okay, dude, like, I get it. Like, I know you don't think I get it, but like 3 years ago, I was homeless on the streets. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is my story too. And just because we look the way we look now does not mean that we were not that person too. And we aren't still that person. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that, again, coming from a clinical background and coming from a background of being in recovery is like a huge asset in what we do.
Yeah.
It's just huge. And again, it makes me love what I do, you know? I think because I have a personal connection to it. And I think that, you know, I don't look at myself in the mirror and go, you're awesome. You know, maybe I should more. But I think that we don't realize that we are those people that people look up to, right? Like our clients look up to us and want what we have, right? And want to know how we got there, you know? So, yeah, I'm thankful for my crazy story.
Yeah.
You know, got me here today. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Where are we at on time?
You're at 50 minutes almost.
50? Okay. Probably should. How do you think?
We should like close it out.
Is there anything else that you'd want to say? You could probably like
I hate
help
this.
promote
I'm like
yourself and stuff.
vomiting everywhere.
No, it's so good.
Yeah, no, this
I
one's
think
been really good.
And you were really like, I was like, wow, how many times has she told her story? Because you didn't even like, it was so smooth.
I've only told it like 4 times, but I
Really?
also have an issue where I think it's part dissociation where I like really don't have a problem telling my
No, it's
like what's because I'm not going to just
good.
tell it partly
Yeah.
without, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what's the point in that? It's not going to help anybody. So
exactly.
no, I'm good.
Any other shout outs? Like maybe like help like, you know, people
Like-
understand what business development is a little bit more, or like
Yeah.
anything like that.
Just look at me as a friend who wants to help get you to the right place. And have a knowing that I am not going to sell you on where I work, even though it's awesome, if it's not the right place for you. You know, I want to get you to the right place so you can get help and stop leaving facilities after a week. So I would say, like, I know it's hard to trust people, but try, you know, try and not forget why you asked for help in the first place and why you walked in these doors in the first place, right? We didn't just go pick you off the street. You came to us asking for help. So let me do what I do best and what I'm paid for every day and help you get to where you need to be, you know?
It's true.
Yeah.
That's the right way to approach it.
Yeah. Just like, gotta talk to people like they're humans, you know, because they've been through places where they're treated like animals. I've been in facilities where it's run by people that have never met anybody in recovery or never, you know, it's strictly a business and you feel like an animal in a zoo being studied, you know? So I think just talking to individuals like the human beings they are really has a reaction. Yeah.
Meet people where they're at.
Exactly. You have to. Or else I'm telling you, it's not going to fucking work.
No,
Yeah.
you have to disarm them because, like, especially because they've been screwed over so many
Yeah.
times. So
Mhm.
That's something I notice in recovery a lot is like people will like sometimes like talk at the person like,
Yeah.
well, you need to go to more meetings or like you need to do this. It's like
Tell
if
them
I was
why.
you,
How about
you're
that?
not at the fourth step
Yes.
yet. You've been
Yeah.
sober for like 6 months.
Why aren't they at the fourth step? How about ask them that? You know what I mean? Like, God,
Yeah, 100%.
it's not one right way to do this at all. There's millions of ways to do this. And just because someone's not doing it your way doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way for them,
it's true.
you know?
I do think it is hard to find the mix between compassion and like structure though.
Absolutely. If you cross the line with me, I might seem nice and jolly, but if you cross the line, or if you're really overstepping a boundary, I will definitely put you in your place, right? Because you also came here to be put in your place to an extent,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's also very hard to work in this industry because you have to have really strong boundaries of your own. You can't get too involved in someone's story or an individual. You just can't. Because then you'll take it home with you, you know. But at the same time, I will not let someone walk all over me. There's no way in hell, you know. But like you said, there's a certain way to do it, you know. I think it's finding that certain way, and it's different for each person. We just have to be able to gauge the individual, which is really tough, you know. But it's doable. It's doable. And it's worth trying for sure, putting in the effort instead of just treating everybody like they're the same person.
Yeah.
You know?
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, of course, guys. Thanks for having me.
It was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a good time.